Alright, hi everybody, how are you today? I'm here to talk to you today about why your friend is gay. I have a little bit of a different attitude to what most people think. These days, people look at homosexuality as being something that you are born with. Right? And for a long time, I thought that was true, and I thought that, well, you know, some people are just that way, or maybe they're not born that way. Maybe they became that way when they were teenagers, or something like that, or they just suddenly realized they were not interested. Most gay, lesbian, and bisexual people find out about their sexuality when they're about 12 years old. Or 13, 14, something like that. So some people think that it can't possibly be from the time they were born. Others say, well, no, it must have been like it must have developed, you know, it must have come out, you know, out of their sort of like the way they grew up or whatever. Now I have a story to tell which illustrates my view on this. My view on this is perhaps might be a little bit upsetting if you are gay, lesbian, or bisexual, and especially if you're in Vietnam, where I am, where perhaps the prevailing attitude is not the same as it is in the States. But let me tell you what happened to me, and I'll tell you my story about how I figured out what's going on, at least as far as it seems to be. When I was a little boy, I lived with my mum and dad, and unfortunately my dad was not very friendly with me. He beat me up, shouted at me, got very angry. On one occasion he tried to throw me out the window, and various other things. So when I was a little boy, I was very scared of my father, and he was not friendly with me. And so I developed a fear of him, right? And later I started going to school, and unfortunately my father's behavior had developed in me a personality disorder, which is where I spent most of my time daydreaming and thinking about imagining people loving me. So because of that, I spent most of my time in a daydream. So when I started school, my friends found it difficult to accept me. But I didn't know that I had a problem at that time, right? So I thought I was normal. So for me, I found that my friends at school were, the boys were not friendly with me at all, right? And there were a few boys who were friendly with me, but a lot of guys, they were rude, and they bullied me and teased me. They used to call me rude names in the corridor, give me a hard time, and this went on for a very long time. It started when I was 3 years old, when I started play school. It was a bit better when I was in nursery school, when I was about 4. But then when I started at the age of 5 in infant school, but then that was the beginning, right? And it went on, really, teasing and bullying by my friends at school went on till I was 16, right? So that was quite a long time. In the meantime, my mother divorced my father when I was 7, okay, and married somebody else. But the other person she also divorced, right, when I was 14. So then there was a third one, right? And the thing is, whatever happened, I developed an attitude where it felt like men and boys were totally unreliable, right? I felt like men just, they just do what they want whenever they like. They don't seem to care about anything. They don't seem to be committed to anything. They just come and they go, and they come and they go. And they do whatever they like, whenever they want. And they don't really have any commitment. They're not reliable. They're not dependable. They just come and they go, and they come and they go. Boys are no better. They're just rude, arrogant, annoying, right? They come up to me in the corridor at school and they just shout at me for what appeared to be no reason. I know differently now. These days I know that I had a personality disorder, and that was the reason why. But at the time I didn't know that. So I thought I was acting normally and they were just being incredibly rude. So I grew up having constant problems with men and boys, right? But with girls, I never had such trouble. I always had. When I was a kid, I didn't hang out with a whole bunch of girls. I wasn't like that. I still hung out with the boys because that's what you do. That's what you do when you're a little boy. But I never had trouble with girls. They never gave me any hard time. I never had any problems with them. Everything was great, and things were wonderful. And so anyway, as I got older, I began to appreciate my mother, who was always with me the whole time, always reliable, always dependable, always somebody I could rely on. And so anyway, I remember that there was a time in the schoolyard at school when I got really bored with having to talk to boys all the time. Like I couldn't even get a word in edgeways without having some boy coming up with some kind of ridiculous, stupid comment. Whereas with a girl, I was like, you could see them talking in the schoolyard, and it was great. Like I would sometimes look at a bunch of girls over in the schoolyard. I'd be thinking, look at those girls there. They're having a normal conversation, right? They can hold down a sensible and normal conversation about normal things. I began to think it would be really great if I could also experience that kind of conversation and that kind of normal friendship with normal people. I didn't want to keep having to hang out with a bunch of guys who just are rude, say rude things, use bad language, and couldn't be bothered to be friendly. I wanted to be able to talk, if you like, with people who could hold down a sensible conversation. So I began to think that girls were rather good at this, right? And I started to admire girls. And after a while, by the time I was 10 or 12, I began to sort of idolize females to a certain extent, because I thought they're so excellent. They're always reliable. They're always dependable. They're always on time, do things properly, don't waste time, don't use bad language. They always do everything okay. So I began to sort of idolize females and think that women and girls are fabulous, right? And I thought they were great. Anyway, when I was about 13 or 14, well, puberty came in and I started to look at them in a more sexy way. Right? So I developed an attraction towards females. And at the time, I didn't think that was anything amiss, because I thought, well, I'm a guy, she's a girl, everything's okay. And I thought I was straight. And that's what I thought. So anyway, I went through my teenage years hoping that I would eventually get a girlfriend and, have a relationship or whatever. So the years went by and the years went by, and as I was a teenager, I wasn't particularly fussed. I thought, well, it's okay, I've got plenty of time. So I went on and I kept on. I met girls here and there and blah, blah, but nothing really happened. And I was friendly and polite with them, but nothing happened. And occasionally I talked to girls in the class, but then nothing happened. And this went on and this went on and this went on. Anyway, finally I got to the age of 19. And there was an all-night party, right, organized by my friends. By this time I was at a tertiary education college. And we had an all-night party by the sea, right, near my hometown. Near where my family lived. Anyway, I thought, well, maybe this is my big chance. Maybe this is, I was 2 weeks away from my 20th birthday, and I thought, wow, maybe I'm going to get lucky and meet a girl at this party. So I went there and met girls, and there was a girl there that I was particularly interested in, and she had sex, but not with me. She had sex with somebody else. And so I thought, well, so the party came and went. And 2 weeks later, I celebrated my 20th birthday, and I got to the end of my teenage years. And I thought to myself, well, what's going on? What's the deal here? So all that time in my teenage years, I didn't kiss anybody, I didn't get a hug from anybody, I didn't have a girlfriend, I didn't have a date, right? Nothing happened then. So I was very, very interested in girls. I love females, I love being with them, but nothing happened. I talked to my mum about it when I was 20, and I said, I think something should have happened in my teenage years. I'm 20 now, right? And nothing happened. And she said, oh, don't worry about it, love, she said, you know, not everybody has a girlfriend or a boyfriend, you know, when they're teenagers, you know, it's not a big deal. And yeah, maybe she was right, but it bothered me, and it started to bother me. You know, I didn't like the fact that I went through my whole teenage years without anything happening, you know. Not even a kiss, not even a hug, nothing. Not even any physical contact, no touching, no nothing. So I thought, well, what am I going to do about this? So I decided that I would do something about it. So at that time I was working in a supermarket, and they had a few social evenings. I went out and hung out with them, and I started to make conversations with a few girls, and I decided that it would be the best idea would to be friends with them first. That was a mistake, but I didn't know that at the time. So I thought, well, let's be friends. So I would talk to girls and all this stuff, and I noticed that if I act like myself, they were not interested. Whereas if I pretend to be somebody else, like somebody a bit more tougher and a bit more macho, if you like, they got attracted. But I didn't like that, because I thought, well, that means they don't accept me as I am. So a number of occasions went by when I thought, what's going on? Anyway, finally, one day, I met this woman, right? And she was 24. I was, like I say, 1920s. Right? And she was actually my boss in the supermarket. She wasn't the boss of the whole department, but she was like the deputy. So me and her started being friendly, and she was really nice and everything on. And I listened to her, and we talked together, and we became great friends. And we went out together, and she started to invite me out for like having a beer in a bar somewhere or going somewhere else. And I thought, okay, great, excellent. So I went out with her, spent loads of time with her. We talked about everything. And one of the nice things I noticed was that her background was the same as mine. She was, she also had a bad relationship with her father, and he was not a very friendly person. And she also did not really get on with boys very well. And she also, she really wanted her mum to spend a bit more time with her, but her mum was kind of busy all the time, or she didn't really have, she wanted to be a bit more close to her mother. Anyway, so we kept on being friends and being friends and being friends and being friends. Sooner or later, people in the supermarket began to notice that me and her were hanging out together. And we were just friends, right? But they started making comments about me and her. And I was like, well, what's the problem? You know, like, she was fat and I was thin. Right? So I figured that they were making a joke about her size. So I just fobbed it off and forgot it. Later, my mum started asking me, do you really like this girl? And I said, well, she's nice, you know. And then my mum said to me, don't get your hopes up, love. And I was like, well, whatever, you know. I'm not expecting to be like boyfriend and girlfriend right now. I'm just happy to be friends with her. Anyway, this went on, and this went on, and this went on. Anyway, one day, Christmas Eve came around, and there was the Christmas party at the supermarket. And we went out to this hotel, and there was beer, and there was drinking, and there was a disco on, and it was all nice and all that. Anyway, I spent the night dancing on the dance floor while she drank beer at the bar. Right? She got very upset and lonely at that party. Right? I didn't. I had a great time, but she got upset and lonely at the bar, and it was Christmas Eve. So my boss took her and me home to her house, right? And my boss told me, go out, and because she was pretty drunk, so she told me, go out and make sure that she gets to the door okay without falling down. So I said, okay. So I went out, and I went to escort her, if you like, to her door to make sure that she didn't fall over on the way down. Anyway, on the way, we kept on walking until the car was outside. And she said that she was a terrible person, and she was awful, and she thought her life was awful, and she hated herself and so on. I told her that I thought she was wonderful. I thought she was an excellent person. I thought I really enjoyed being with her. I enjoyed having a good time with her, and I thought she was great. Anyway, suddenly she gave me a thank you kiss. She leaned forward and kissed me on the lips. I liked that very much, so I kissed her a few more times. Anyway, but there was no sloppy long kiss, just 4 or 5 little pecks on the cheek and all this kind of stuff. And it was on the lips as well, and I liked that. And it was nice. It was my first kiss, and that was really great. Anyway, that was the end of that. The next day, she couldn't even remember it because she drank so much beer. As for me, I can't forget it. Now, as it turns out, about a month or two later, my mother told me, I've heard something about her. So I said, what did you hear? And she said, I think she's a lesbian. I said, I don't think so. I said, she's not a lesbian. Right? I said, and I told my mother the truth. And I said, on Christmas Eve at the party, I escorted her to her house. And on the way there, we kissed. And my mother was like, oh, really? And she was surprised. So anyway, she thought she was a lesbian, right? And I actually asked this girl at another event, like when she invited me for a beer at another pub. I said, are you a lesbian? And she said to me, she looked at me and said, I just haven't found the right man yet. So anyway, we continued to be friends, and it was no big deal, right? And this went on, and finally, when it was, then she finally changed her job and got a job in another supermarket somewhere else. And that was the end of that. Well, later I went to London, and I did an acting course in the city, right? And there was a teacher there. Now he was gay, and anyway, I met this gay guy, right? And he was friendly. I was a bit stupid with him actually, because I was very scared of men and boys in those days, so I gave him a bit of a hard time, which I feel bad about now. Right, but anyway, he told me, right, and he noticed, and other gay men I've met have told me that they had not a very good relationship with their mum. So their mum was very, very strict with them, right? And very, very mean and shouting and angry all the time. And I said, and then their relationship with their dad was like, well, he was okay, but he was always unavailable, never there, always busy, always doing something else, never had time to play with his son, right? And so anyway, so I found that there were a number of gay guys who had this same story, right? And so I noticed that they had rather strict mothers and dads who really didn't care for each other. So finally, the third story I want to tell you is when I met a girl in a bar, right? And we were working in the bar. Now she was straight. She liked boys, but she liked boys rather a lot. She had sex with her first boyfriend. She had sex with her the first time when she was 13. And when I met her, she was 17. And we worked in the bar together. And she told me that she used to go out to nightclubs every Saturday night. She'd get absolutely drunk and get wasted and end up going to some guy's house, and then end up having sex. I said, well, this happens every week. She said, oh yeah, normally. And how long have you been doing this? I said, well, she said 4 years. So I said, well, that means, well, there's 52 weeks in a year, so that means you must have had sex about 200 times. She said, well, and she looked embarrassed. I said, well, yeah, maybe. I said, well, and how many men do you think you've had sex with since then? About, I think she counted them off with her fingers and said, well, it's about 26. I said, oh, okay. Anyway, so I had a very nice friendship with her. I got a bit of a crush on her eventually. And anyway, to cut a long story short, what happened was she did not have a very good relationship with other girls. She was rude to other girls. She thought other girls were stupid, and she used to shout at other girls in bars saying, "Oh, you look terrible," and blah 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 blah. But she loved boys now, and she always had a boyfriend. She always was going out with a huge range of men, and she used to hang out with, especially she used to hang out with like 5 or 6 guys that she had regular sex with and all this kind of thing. Anyway, so she had a very strict dad. Wait a minute, let me think. No, her dad was absent. Her mum and dad got divorced a long time ago, and so her dad was absent from her life. Right? So she didn't grow up with any father figure. And her mum was always busy, had to go to work, take care of her, so was never available to take care of her daughter. So her daughter grew up being really, really interested in men and getting rather annoyed with girls. And it was then, when I thought, and then much, much later, it suddenly occurred to me that that is the answer to why many people are gay, right? I thought about the time when I knew the lesbian, and the time when I met the gay guys, and the time when I met that girl who had 26 men. And everything clicked together, and I suddenly figured it all out. So now, let me teach you what I think is the truth about being gay, right? And let's sort it out. I'm going to go over to the other room now and draw it out on the board so that you can see it. Right? All right, we're back. So here we are. On the board here, I have written a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know if you can see this so well. So let's look at the board. But on this board, I've divided the board into like three columns. And here we have the father column, the mother column, and the child column. Now, from my experience with the lesbians I've met, the gays I've met, the bisexuals I've met, what I've noticed is that the relationship with their parents follows this pattern, right? Maybe not every gay person, not every lesbian, not every bisexual, but the ones I have met so far have been like this. Alright? Let's say you live in a family where your dad is either absent a lot, or he doesn't really care too much about his kids, doesn't spend time with them, doesn't show much love to his kids, and is always busy with work and like doing other things and whatever, right? And there is a mother, right, who is strict, right, angry, right, critical, judgmental, right, insensitive, shouts a lot, and even hits the child, right? If you live in that kind of family where your dad basically is either too busy or doesn't care or doesn't show any emotion towards you or any love for you, and your mum is really strict and is quite shouts a lot and angry and blah blah, then what happens to the child? Well, if the child is a boy, right, he is likely to be gay, right? And if the child is a girl, then she will grow up to really like boys, right? In other words, she's really interested in boys, right? And she's boy crazy. So okay, that's how that works out. Then on the other hand, if it's the other way round, let's say your dad is strict, angry, critical, judgmental, insensitive, right? Shouts a lot, hits the kid, right? And mum is absent and she doesn't care and she's too busy and she doesn't show much love, she's always out and about and doing this and blah 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 and all this. Right? If that's how your family is, then that will create a son who really likes girls, right? He absolutely loves women, right? And will do anything for them, and he has a lot of girlfriends and he really loves females. Or a daughter who is a lesbian, right? Okay, so I've noticed that, right? And then what happens if both parents don't care, alright? So dad is absent, doesn't care, doesn't show much love, always busy, and mum is also absent, doesn't care, doesn't show much love, and is always busy, alright? Then what happens then? Well, then it's likely that the son will be bisexual and the daughter will also be bisexual. Now, this doesn't happen every time, every place, everywhere. There are a lot of other factors involved. So for instance, your friends at school are actually very important, So let's say your dad is absent and doesn't show much love, and your mom is really strict. Well then, if you're a boy, then there's a likelihood that you could end up gay, alright? But if your friends are really supportive and they really stick up for you, right, then that may not happen. Right? You may in fact end up having, you may get enough support from male friends to feel that you don't need love, right, from guys. Right? So, and the same with lesbians. Alright, like if you've got a really angry, strict dad, alright, and a mum who's too busy to care, alright, then if you're a girl and then you might end up as a lesbian if that's all you've got, right? But if you've got a lot of female support from your friends, well then you might get enough love from your friends to stop that, and you might not actually be a lesbian, right? Now, again, it doesn't necessarily have to be mum and dad, alright? It could be somebody else in your family. Maybe you are the only boy in a family of girls, alright? Maybe all your older sisters, maybe you're the youngest child and you're a boy, and all your older sisters are much older than you and they're not friendly with you and give you a hard time, but your mum and dad are okay. Well then you might still end up gay, right? Because your mum and dad are okay, but you're still scared of girls because of the behavior of your older sister. So it doesn't necessarily have to always be mum and dad. It could be an uncle, it could be a grandfather, it could be older brothers and sisters, it could be a cousin, it could be any. But what's most important is that I've noticed that a lot of gay guys have issues concerning significant relationships when they were kids with male people, right? Where dad or whoever it was did not give them enough love and support as a male, right? And mum was really strict, right? So he grows up thinking that all women are going to be emotionally difficult like her mum, like his mum, and all men are going to turn out to be people that he needs a lot of love from because his dad didn't bother. So then he ends up being attracted to men, right? Now, and the same with lesbians, right? If a lesbian grows up, if a girl grows up in a family where, you know, where dad's really strict and mum and very shouting and angry, then she's going to feel scared of men, and she's going to think that a lot of men are going to be like her dad, right? And her mum is going to be a female. She should have stuck up for her daughter, but she didn't, because she's too busy doing this and doing that and doing this and doing that. So because she's so busy, she didn't have time to take care of her daughter properly, right? So the daughter grows up really wanting some female acceptance and didn't get it, right? So then she ends up being interested in girls. Now, and of course, as you can see, for bisexual people, then both parents are absent or don't care or aren't doing anything. And this is kind of relevant to Vietnam in particular, because now students in my school are having there's just more and more and more gays, lesbians, and bisexuals in our student body, right? And for me, that's no problem. I don't mind. You know, I love all my LGBT people, and I'm really happy that they're in my life. And for me, this is kind of personal, right? Because what do you think about my background? I told you before at the beginning of the video that my dad was angry and scary and shout a lot and hit me and all that, right? But my mum was excellent, right? She was not absent and didn't care. She was really good, right? So my mum was excellent, right? But my dad was not, right? So what happens with me? Well, I've got this dad here, strict, angry, shouts a lot, hits child, critical, insensitive, judgmental, right? But I don't have this mother. So I've got half of the stuff that would be appropriate for a lesbian. But I'm a boy. So guess what? I'm halfway to being a son who really, really likes girls. Right? So what's really important about this table that I've got on this board is that it also includes straight people. Not just gays, lesbians, and bisexuals, but also on this board are straight people, right? As well, so if you have a father who doesn't care and a mother who is strict, then not only do you get a son who is gay, but also a daughter who really, really likes boys. So do you see that? So it isn't just about being gay, lesbian, or bisexual. This is also about being straight. Right? There are some straight people who also experience the same feelings. And my theory is that a girl who really, really likes boys has exactly the same family background as a gay guy. Right? Then, and the same here, right? A daughter who is a lesbian, right, is a lesbian, right? Maybe because of this problem, because her dad was super strict, angry, and like perhaps a bit violent, and mum was too busy to care. But that's for the lesbian daughter. But what about if they have a son? Right? What happens to him? Well, he's a son who really, really likes girls, like me. So, what does this mean? Right? So we have this situation where a daughter who really, really likes boys, and a son who really, really likes girls are also on this, in this theory, okay? So I put it to you that sexuality is not about being male or female, but it's not even really about attraction, you know? Most people define it as being an attraction. Homosexuality is as an attraction towards members of the same sex. That's right, it is. But what's the reason? Right? I put it to you that there is a relationship between the way you were treated and the type of love that you want. There's no place in this theory for judgment. Right? What I'm telling you, and I'm not saying that this is only for LGBT people. This is for straight people too. And I think the relationship between straight people and LGBT people is much closer than most people make it out to be. Most people seem to think that LGBT people are like those people over there, and straight people are over here, and that there's this big gap. I don't think there is. I think there's plenty of overlap. And in particular, I want to draw your attention to these two types of straight people. The daughter who's really, really, really interested in boys, and the son who's really, really interested in girls. I take the view that the girl that I met, right, who had sex with 26 men 200 times, right, by the time she was 17, she had this, right? She had an absent father and a strict mother, right? And she really, really liked boys in the same way that a gay guy does, right? And look at me, right? I am a good example of, well, half an example, if you like. I had a strict father, but my mum was great. So I'm halfway to being a son who really, really likes girls, and that kind of sums me up, right? Because I've got a lot of interest in female issues, right? So, and a more famous example, right, of this kind of person, a son who really, really likes girls. A long time ago, there was this soul singer whose name was Marvin Gaye, right? He was not gay, right? That was just his name, right? Marvin Gaye, right, was a soul singer, and his dad was this really strict Protestant preacher, right? And he was really full on, like, you know, about judgment and heaven and hell and all this kind of thing, right? And Marvin Gaye, right, lived in that kind of background where his dad was really angry and strict, right? And his mum was sort of like not really very available and so on. Marvin Gaye grew up to be a soul singer who had a lot of women in his life, right? And in the end, he was shot dead by his own dad. So Marvin Gaye is perhaps the most famous example of a son who really, really likes girls because his dad was really strict and his mother didn't care. And I am sort of like halfway towards being that myself. So I have a personal interest in this issue. For me, this theory makes it easy for me to understand gays, lesbians, and bisexuals. I know exactly what's going on in their life before they even open their mouth. And sometimes I can figure out if somebody is gay or lesbian or bisexual just by asking about their family, without having to ask any questions about sexuality. I can just talk about, oh, how's your mum, how's your dad? And then, okay, does it look like this? Okay, I can figure it out without even asking. And it normally works. Now, a lot of gays, lesbians, bisexuals don't want to accept this because this is very upsetting and very personal for them. And I want to tell you that this is often not popular with them. They don't want to know this. They don't want to accept this. Right? So you may find, so don't tell your friend all this information. Right? Keep it in the back of your brain. Right? And but you tend to, if you do have any gay friends, lesbian friends, or bisexual friends in your class, right, then that tells you some important information about their family life, and you don't have to ask them. Right? Keep it quiet. Shh. Right? if for instance there's a gay boy in your class, then you can assume that his mum is really angry all the time, his dad is like too busy. If there's a girl and she's a lesbian, well then blah blah blah. So I'm following this style, okay? Alright, so you don't need to ask a whole bunch of personal questions about their life. Alright, just keep it in the back of your brain as reference and think, oh yeah, okay, now I know what's going on. Now, the prevailing culture is that gay people, lesbians and bisexuals were, if you like, born this way, or at least it manifested itself as in their teenage years, but perhaps it was latent or whatever. And it was like, like Lady Gaga, for instance, she sang the song "Born This Way," which is an excellent song, right? And I love Lady Gaga, right? But she's bisexual, and she believes that she was born this way. But have you seen the state of her parents, right? Both of her parents are a bunch of wasters, right? So I love Lady Gaga, but I don't love her parents, right? They are a right pain in the neck, right? So if you know anything about Lady Gaga, you know that her parents are a couple of wasters, right? And now she's bisexual. Oh, how did that happen? You know? So look, her mum and dad, her dad didn't care, her mum didn't care. Oh look, a daughter who's bisexual. Oh wow, how did that figure out? So I get a little bit upset sometimes by the prevailing culture of like, oh, I was born this way. Because it sort of like sweeps things under the carpet a little bit too much. It lets the parents get away with some really terrible things, and it means the kid looks bad and the parents look good, which I don't think is very fair. Personally, I think gays, lesbians and bisexuals are excellent people, but I don't agree with their parents, right? Now their parents might have been okay. Their parents don't necessarily not love their children. Like, I've seen pictures on Facebook of like parents saying, I love my lesbian daughter. Okay, that's great, right? But they need to face up to the fact that they messed up, right? You might love your kid, but you've messed up, right? So, and if my own son turns out to be gay in the future, well then that means I messed up. And I have to say, well, I'm sorry son, but I tried my best. So it's not my fault. We shouldn't be judgmental towards our parents and say, it was you, right? That's not a good answer. That's not the answer. The answer then is to say, hey, stuff happens. This has happened. I need to face up to it. It's a very big and heavy cross to carry through my life. And I know it is, because I've had to carry it myself. And I can't even say I'm a lesbian because I'm not even a girl. Right? But I have to face up to the fact that perhaps if I had been born female, that I would have actually become a lesbian. Right? But because I'm a boy, nobody knows. Right? So I have to keep silent about that. So, and while this is going on, like LGBT people are getting a whole bunch of hard time and discrimination for doing nothing wrong. It's not their fault that they're gay. Whereas the people who may have contributed to it, they look excellent. Oh, it's not my. Oh, I don't know why my son is gay. Oh, I didn't do anything. So it kind of annoys me. Right? So yeah, I'm always going to stick up for you. So if you are one of my students and you're gay or lesbian or bisexual, of course I'll always stick up for you. I'll always be with you. Always take care of you. Always love you. Especially if you're lesbian, right? Because you're almost the same as me. Right? So anyway, that's the end of this video. It's kind of long, but it's a big subject to cover. Alright, so I hope you like this, and well, this is it. This has been Ollie for Ollie's Personal Development, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks.